Okay, it's 7 o'clock, so we'll start the 2013 Hurricane Awareness Meeting. Thank you all for coming. I'd like to also thank people who are watching us on cable, Bright House Cable 615. And tonight, this is our first meeting that we're streaming on the internet. So this meeting is being streamed on the internet, and we're going to show people how to get to that internet site in the near term. But for right now, this is our, well, in the engineering world, this is our beta test. We're our first test in live action. So welcome to everybody on the internet as well. Okay, so I want to start off by personally thanking everybody who's going to make presentations tonight. We have Brad Dykins and he's the Public Education Officer from the Seminole Fire and Rescue Group. And then Sergeant Jeff Rawson from the Indian Shores Police Department. And then Steve Andrews, our building official right here in the town of Redington Shores, and he does some work for Indian Shores. So thank you all for sharing your time and your expertise. This group will share some information with you that hope will benefit you for sure. If not now, then in the future. Okay, the meeting is scheduled for about an hour, and then we have refreshments in the community room, coffee and cookies and things like that. All right, so let me start off by saying we've been extremely lucky here in this Pinellas County and in Florida, really, because for the last 7 years, no hurricanes have hit Florida or the Tampa Bay area. So the last storm, the last hurricane that hit Florida was Wilma in 2005. Now, people are saying, well, what about Tropical Storm Debbie? Yes, it did impact us last year. And what it did for me was, and should do for you, is trigger the, get past the complacency that it can't happen here. That was a little introduction that it could happen, it will happen here. Because for some of you, look like you might remember Dick Fletcher, who was a meteorologist here in the Tampa Bay area. He was a friend of Redington Shores. He came and talked to us many times when he was here. And what he said, every time he was here, he said, it's not if a storm is going to hit Redington Shores, it's when a storm is going to hit Redington Shores. So I want to just share that, Dick's comment. It's still valid. Okay, so this group is going to present some material tonight, and I want to set a common definition for some of the terms. Storm surge is what is really being focused on this year. And what is a storm surge? Storm surge is an rise in the water level caused by the wind pushing on the water. And when you have shallow land, like we have a shallow floor underneath our water here, the wind pushes that water up, and it causes the water to rise above the ordinary sea level. Another name for a storm surge is called storm tide. And a storm tide is a combination of the rise of the water from the wind, the tide, the effect of the tide, the wave run-up, and any freshwater flooding that might come in where the inlets are, like the St. John's Pass. The thing that you need to remember, and I did some research on this, most casualties during a tropical storm or during a hurricane occur as a result of storm surge. That's why it's important. Okay. Now hurricanes, okay, so let me just describe storms for you, these storms. Everything starts off as a tropical, they call it a tropical cyclone. A tropical depression is when the winds are 38 miles an hour or less. A tropical storm, winds are going to go up to 73 miles an hour. And then you have, after 73 miles an hour, they're officially labeled hurricanes. So Category 1 goes up to 95 miles an hour. Category 2 goes up to 110 miles an hour. Category 3, 130 miles an hour. Category 4, and Category 5, which are major hurricanes. Category 4 goes up to 156 miles an hour. And Category 5 is in excess of 156. Now, just to remind everybody, and people will remember these names, and I just want to share with you how these sizes fit. Hurricane Andrew in 1992 was a Category 5. It stayed off the shore of Miami, stayed off the coast of Miami for a couple of days, and it was Category 2, Category 3. And when it made its move to Miami, it strengthened to a Category 5, over 156 miles an hour. It actually hit land at 175 miles an hour. It hit Miami. And of course, it moved across the lower portion of the state. And because we're on a barrier island, this is going to be important information to you. I was involved with Hurricane Andrew because I was responsible for the ATM machines down there, and I did not have electricity to the ATM machines for 7 days. Nobody had access to cash for 7 days. Okay, that's Hurricane Andrew. Now Charlie, everybody remembers Charlie, 2004, it was only a Category 4, 150 miles an hour. Okay, and as it was left, as it was smacking into Sanibel and Captiva, everybody in Redington Shores who was watching that storm saw that black line going right through their living room, because that's where it was going. Every television had it right through your living room. And when it got to Punta Gorda, Dennis Phillips said, "Is that a wobble?" And it was a wobble. And that's when the storm turned, unpredictably turned into Punta Gorda. Now, and you recognize how much damage the Category 4 Charlie did. A woman from the city manager from Sanibel presented to us last month in April, and she described the results of Hurricane Charlie in Sanibel, the city that was hit with the Category 4. And some sections of that city, the evacuations, the people who were evacuated were not allowed back for 30 days. Okay, so evacuations are serious business. Okay, a little more closer to home now. Tropical Storm Debbie, we already mentioned, 73 miles an hour, less than 73 miles an hour. And if you remember, on Friday it was going to Texas. I talked to people in Texas and thanked them for taking Debbie with them. And Sunday morning I come back from church and the news said, "Get ready, here it is." And I said, "Well, what happened to Texas when you need them the most?" And Tropical Storm Debbie brought torrential rains, if you recall. Almost every part of Redington Shores was flooded as a result of Tropical Storm Debbie. Remember, this is not even a hurricane, this is a tropical storm. Okay. And then the last one I want to mention is Sandy, 2012, last November, in New Jersey. Okay, so Sandy started as a hurricane, Category 3 coming through Cuba. And as it came up the East Coast, it lessened. First in Category 2, and as it approached the state of New York, the New Jersey and New York area, it reduced to a Category 1. And it stayed offshore for about a day, if you'll recall. And then it started moving toward the west, into the city. And when it moved to the west, it even lost more speed and became a tropical storm. Thus, they referred to it as Superstorm Sandy and not Hurricane Sandy. Okay, and the reason I mentioned storm surge on Sandy, for those of you who are familiar with New York City, Battery Park borders the Hudson River. And if you stand in Battery Park, you kind of look up at the Hudson River because they have like about a 6-foot kind of a seawall that protects Battery Park from the Hudson River. The Sandy storm surge was 13 feet. So anybody can do some arithmetic. So it flooded Battery Park, flooded the subway system, and look how long it took New York to recover from that. And then it backed up to the East River, flooded Manhattan. New Jersey's shore is still being repaired, and that was from a tropical storm. Okay, so my point is, you need to take all these tropical storms and hurricanes very seriously. Our average elevation in Redington Shores is 5 feet. So when they say a storm surge, remember, your house is probably sitting 5 feet above sea level. Okay, this year, NOAA's predicting 13 to 20 named storms with 7 to 10 growing into hurricanes. That's about an average year. My other role, other than this town, is I'm a project manager. And I manage big projects with large project teams, international project teams. The most difficult message I have to sell my project teams is that the only chance you have to plan is before the event. Once the event starts, you're either doing one of two things. You're executing your plan or you're reacting. So, the simple lesson learned is develop a plan so that when the storm hits, remember Dick Fletcher said it was going to hit, so when the storm hits, you can just execute your plan. Okay. While we have these presentations, if you want to ask some questions, please feel free to do so. And we're going to, in the community room, these people will be there to answer your questions as well. And I'm going to remind you at the end of the meeting, since we're in a barrier island, we get evacuated first. Okay. The way you get back on is through this post-disaster reentry permit. They're available in town. There's an application that you just fill out the application, bring that and $1, and you get this. Hang it on your mirror, because this number right here, 114, that's my number. And when you go back, the Pinellas County Sheriff is going to let you back over the bridges back into town. And if you have this, they'll notice this number, and they have this in their computer, so they know it's me. And they'll know it's you if you have this permit. So pretty important to get a permit. Yes?
If you don't have one of those, you won't get back in here?
No, ma'am.
Even if you have a driver's license that says you...
If you don't have a reentry permit, you won't be granted access to the beach.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that then.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that in Storm Debbie, everything in Redington Shores was flooded. Can you elaborate a little more as far as depth of flood?
Okay. I'm going to just tell you a personal experience. I live on Lee Avenue, you know, on the west side of Gulf Boulevard. And so I was watching Tropical Storm Debbie, which I was not prepared for, and it's raining from the south against my windows, and I have hurricane windows. I mean, I just put them in 5 years ago, and it was raining so hard, and my hurricane windows catch the rain, and they have drainage pieces for the rain to drain through the hurricane windows. It was raining so hard that the drains could not accommodate the pace of the water coming against my windows. So the water was coming in my house through my windows, right? And these are expensive windows. So I had to put my hurricane shutters down to protect my house. Okay, now I'm about 2 feet above sea level, above the street level. And right in front of my house, there's 2 storm sewers. And the tide was up at 5 o'clock Sunday night. The tide was up. Tropical Storm Debbie's laying a lot of water on me. So the tides pushed the water back up pushed it back up the storm sewer system. The rains had no place to go, and so they were building up. My neighbors coming in to me, they need sandbags because the water was coming in their house underneath their doors. And I was unprepared because I thought it was going to Texas. And that lasted till, then it drained after the tides went down, the water drained out about 8 o'clock that night. But that was my area, and I'm sure other people in the town have stories very similar to that.
So it was a one-day event, primarily, other than
Yeah.
just restoring what was damaged?
Well, yeah, the cleanup takes a little longer because like on Gulf Boulevard here, right in front of the lobster pot was filled with debris.
Was there an evacuation?
No, that storm came up on Sunday. I mean, no, there was no evacuation. Now, we were unprepared for that storm. And the lesson I learned was that, because I work with other states, and not for Debbie, but for other storms. I told one guy from Pennsylvania, for Sandy, I told him, I was talking to him Friday morning, I said, declare a disaster. Because I could initiate my resources, and if Sandy doesn't hit Pennsylvania, just apologize on Monday. It's exactly what I told him. And so he did. He declared a disaster Friday, and Sandy did hit, as luck would have it, and he needed our resources. Next time, when a storm is coming up the Gulf, anywhere near the area, we're just going to be ready. That's what we're going to do. Just not going to ignore it. It's not going to Texas. Okay. So thank you all for that, for letting me talk, and thank you for coming. And whatever you learned tonight, please share with your neighbors. So we'll let Brad, who has some great video.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Well, good evening. How's everybody doing today? Very good. I have to fire up my computer. It went to sleep on me, so let me just get that going here. My name is Brad Dykins. I'm the Public Education Officer with the City of Seminole, and newly appointed to the task, and been getting out in the community, informing people around the area about what it means to be prepared. And preparation is the key for us to have minimal damage, minimal loss of life, and being prepared to recover adequately from the event that's going to be unfolding. As soon as I get this going here, we have Project Phoenix. Project Phoenix is an undertaking from Pinellas County and Emergency Management. They were so good to let us use this to help explain the mission, so to speak, and what it would be like if a storm struck us here in Pinellas County, direct on with a Category 5. Let me show you this film here. You'll see some very familiar faces in it as you notice it progresses through it, and it's actually very vivid the way it describes things. So we'll go ahead with Project Phoenix.
I'm 10 Connect's Chief Meteorologist Tammy Souza, and we want to bring you up to date on a turn of events out in the tropics. We've been watching this tropical storm Phoenix, and it's out here just to the south of Puerto Rico. It is now strengthened to a Category 1 hurricane.
Well, Jim, we do have a problem. We have a new hurricane. That's Hurricane Phoenix. It was a tropical storm earlier today, but now it's reached hurricane intensity. The good news, it's only a Category 1. But notice what I put up here. Now, those of you in Tampa and St. Petersburg, this is still a long way out, but it's October, and the favorable hurricane track is to go to the northwest and then turn back toward Florida. You can see this system is going to come up here as a Category 1 hurricane, move by the Cayman Islands here in about 24 hours. But notice, major hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico in about 4.5 to 5 days, and that's bad news. Well, Jim, it just keeps getting worse now. We've got another update, and we have a 105-mile-per-hour Category 2 hurricane, and it's rapidly intensifying here right near the Yucatan Channel, and it's going to come into the Gulf of Mexico within about 6 to 12 hours. Now, hurricane landfall is certain in the Florida area, we think. That's the most likely in the central West Florida area, and as a Category 4 or even possibly a Category 5 hurricane. So we have an extreme to catastrophic event unfolding here with Hurricane Phoenix.
We are still smack dab in the middle of the cone. At this point, we have all the hurricane watches in place, and I do hope you've started to make all of your preparations for your family, your pets, and all of your belongings, because we are now looking at who has to get out first, and we are going to be looking at an incredibly large storm surge, anywhere from about 10 to 20 feet or possibly more if this does make landfall as a Category 5 hurricane.
I've been waiting an hour and 57 minutes for just some gas.
Thousands heeded the warnings. This was the largest evacuation in history, and it lasted more than 24 hours.
We're beginning to see the tropical storm force winds already in Sarasota and Manatee counties. So as this begins to approach, we are going to be very, very concerned about anybody left behind getting themselves together and getting out. Please take this very seriously. You need to make your preparations. If you haven't already gotten out of the area, you do need to do so.
Well, the latest with potentially catastrophic Hurricane Phoenix. This is now a Category 5 hurricane expected to move to the northeast and make landfall sometime around noon in central Pinellas County. And of course, the winds counterclockwise around this area of low pressure will push water into the bay and cause storm surge flooding as much, even in downtown Tampa, over 21 feet, perhaps even a little bit higher than that. Now, once it does make landfall around noon with those strong winds, it likely will weaken some, perhaps, but still Category 5 or eventually a strong Category 4 inland. So Pasco, Hernando, Sumter, Citrus County, you are not out of the woods just because you are off of the coast. You're still going to see a lot of damage with very high winds as the storm moves into the inland areas. Now, onshore wind piles water along the coast. That's what a storm surge does. As the storm nears, wind will drive that water ashore, and that's what causes the flooding. And again, we're talking about completely flooded barrier islands, places like Longboat Key, for example, Redington Beach. That entire area will be flooded over with water. Parts of Pinellas Pinellas County as well. Now, a hurricane warning remains in effect for all of the Tampa Bay area. 13 to 21-foot storm surge, maybe more than that, even in places like downtown Tampa. Barrier islands will flood. As I mentioned, bridges and causeways destroyed. So again, if you have not left your home yet, do not leave your home. Go to an interior room.
You can see there's a lot of debris down here on the ground. Just chunks of asphalt that's been lifted off the streets and just blown down the way. This is right when the outer high wall is moving through this area. Winds are gusting up to 97 miles an hour.
911.
Yes. Water is all in the house. The roof is completely caved in on us. We need emergency assistance, please.
Okay, man, we can't respond right now because of the condition of the hurricane.
So many people did not heed warnings to evacuate. Rescuers are challenged to find ways back out on the islands and into hard-hit areas to conduct search and rescue operations.
Moving submarine. Roger. Submarine survivor are coming in.
Currently, there are 165 known deaths and more than 30,000 are missing. According to the preliminary damage assessments, at least 1 million buildings were at least moderately damaged. That is over 67% of the total number of buildings in the Tampa Bay area. An estimated 480,000 structures are completely destroyed. Before the hurricane, the region had approximately 14,000 hospital beds available for use. It is estimated that 42 of our 57 hospitals received at least moderate damage. "60% of our fire stations and police stations have been damaged. The sheer amount of debris is overwhelming and will become a health hazard in many communities. It is estimated that 48 million tons of debris will be generated, enough to fill 1.5 million trucks. The Port of Tampa is severely damaged with the potential for an environmental catastrophe. There were many metric tons of anhydrous ammonia, sulfuric acid, and phosphoric acid in the tank farms prior to the storm. In addition, we have lost the millions of gallons of petroleum stored there. The channels leading into the port facilities are filled with debris, and the Skyway Bridge has been damaged and will need to be assessed prior to reopening the port.
We lost everything.
An estimated 843,000 households have been displaced due to this disaster. Approximately 300,000 have sought shelter in existing shelters, as well as other local schools, churches, and businesses.
It can't be replaced, is the biggest thing.
Vicki Dryden is searching for her wedding album, photos taken 61 years ago. She's found a handful of other family heirlooms, but keeps searching for that wedding book.
Economically, there is an estimated building-related loss of $200 billion. Bridge and road closures are impacting response and recovery operations. The devastation to the region is almost unimaginable. However, Tampa Bay can recover from this catastrophe. We can rebuild our houses, schools, businesses, and infrastructure, but we have to work together. The key to recovery is to have a regional plan in place long before disaster strikes. In making Tampa Bay's catastrophic plan, we build partnerships between our local, state, and federal government agencies, private businesses, nonprofit organizations, and individual citizens. We will be ready so that when the worst case happens, we can and will work together to make Tampa Bay a great place to live, work, and play once again.
As Dave Fletcher said, it's not if, it's when. And that's Category 5, and we're not even looking at categories anymore. As Casey was talking about, we're looking at storm surge. The threshold or hallmark event for that was last year with Debbie, okay? The storm surge will increase, and it creates a dome of water, and it causes the damage. What we have out here on the barrier islands is more unique than we have inland. Along with the surge and the rise that we have the pressure of the wind pushing it with the waves. And we're working against something called hydraulics. And when hydraulics will come into play, you're dealing with mass. And it's basically the mass of the water against the structure, against the shoreline, against whatever's in its way. It's usually going to be flattened, and it's going to look like the examples of Hernando Beach. This video was put together by a consortium of people in Pinellas County. The figures are exact. If something like this struck us, they would be right there. Okay? It'd be mass devastation. We saw what happened with Katrina in New Orleans. The same thing would be happening here because of our vulnerability as a peninsula. Okay? Give me a moment here as I put up my PowerPoint presentation, because what I'd like to do is show you some other examples and facts. So let me turn my back to you just as I do this. Excuse me. I'm sorry? This one right here, the slide is basically showing us Andrew when it went through. We see the mass of the storm. We know the destruction that Andrew gave us. Andrew basically rose this huge dome of water that came in and basically inundated the Miami area, as well as having the strong tropical force 5 winds. As we can see by the large area that's covering, because of that large area, it brings up brings up more low pressure areas, I should say, bringing in more water. That's the problem we are dealing with. Hurricane season is now. It started June 1st. Okay, we'd have to be living under a rock not to know that around here. And it's going to last through November 30th. Traditionally, a lot of the more significant storms that hit this area hit in the latter part of the year. Why is that? It's probably because our water temperature gets so high. Okay? And it stays high for quite some time. With that, that nourishes the storm, makes it worse, and gives us the great vulnerability that we have. NOAA come up with the climate prediction, and the Climate Prediction Center came up with our predictions for this year. Casey was a little conservative with it. I took the high end of the numbers. 20 named storms, 11 of them being hurricanes, and then of those 11, 6 are going to be intense hurricanes. Okay, we are in for it. Okay, we can be in for it. We want to be prepared. As you can see from looking at this recent hurricane chart, it shows the amount of hurricanes that are developed in a particular season. We all see the characteristic. They all come from out there in the east, and they work to the west, and they come right hanging at us. We're like a thumb out there waiting to be struck. All right, we need to be prepared. This is another season basically showing the same particular characteristics. Swinging in at us, and we just have to wait for the right one to come along, and it'll get us. We don't want to have that problem. Now, this is the 2000 hurricane season forecast, basically, showing the vulnerability that we have. Our vulnerability is mid to late season, just like I was explaining to earlier. And that has to do with the warm Gulf water temperatures and the waters around the straits. Okay, that's a big factor for us. Early season storms usually come in down south, low, and move out to Texas. And we have higher concern areas up the East Coast, as we just saw with Sandy. But basically, we're focusing right now, our energies could be late season. Do we want to let our guard down when something starts forming? No. We want to be prepared now. We want to be ready to take the correct action. Okay? The Saffir-Simpson scale is the way we predict our storms, or for our, as far as degree of damage. Okay? A Category 2 storm has 96 to 110 mile an hour winds. A Category 3 storm has 111 mile an hour winds to 130 miles an hour. And Category 3, 4, and 5, basically for us in a barrier island environment, they're the ones that are going to really give us a lot of problem with wind damage. Okay? Now, as you can see, we have 156 mile an hour plus winds with Category 5. What's a tornado run these days? About the same. Okay, we're dealing with a tornado type speed of winds, but in a larger area. So we're going to be creating a large scouring effect of the earth when we have a Category 5. Weather terms to know. A watch is when the weather conditions are such that a tropical storm or hurricane conditions are possible within 48 hours. That gives us a little time. We have watches issued, and it buys us some time to get people out. Okay? When a warning happens, a tropical storm or hurricane exists and is a threat to the area immediately. Okay? It's usually within 24 hours or so. We don't have time at all. So our antenna should be going up when we start seeing the watch occurring to buy us the time to escape. Did you remember from the film how long it took to get the people out of the area by using normal means? 24 hours for the film. Okay? Why that's the case, and also a danger for us, is all of our causeways leading out of here, are low-lying areas. That means we'll not be able to use the bridges to get out. It's going to leave one artery out, which is going to be north through Pinellas County through 19, which will be choked off in no time at all. It gets bad just by driving normal hours. Okay? Evacuation map colors are important to recognize. I brought evacuation maps with me. Please take one with you if you have not taken one already. It's a good way to determine what areas are safe. We know you're going to be a purple area. The barrier islands are all getting out right away. Okay? However, where do we go? Well, that's where the map comes into play. And it shows you the higher ground. Okay? Now, we in Seminole are coming out to service you. We are having the higher ground. If you have friends that live in the Seminole area, the Ridge area, I'd encourage you to basically hook up with them, make advanced plans, and maybe evacuate to them. That would be the best plan in place, because trying to get out through all the bridges and such may not be an option with all the traffic that could happen. Okay? What do you think caused the damage to this home? Anybody? Wind and water, mostly water, because the roof is in place. If it was truly just a wind event, the roof would be gone and the bottom would be there. Water was the major culprit with this thing. Okay? Water came in, took away the lower levels of the home, and there was a tidal surge along with wave damage. Okay? That's the hydraulic effect that I was talking about with the wave, the tidal action coming in with the tidal surge. When we have a 20-foot tidal surge, which could happen with a larger storm, okay, it would turn Pinellas County to 2 islands. Okay? By looking at my illustration, whoop, that's not, how did that happen? That was supposed to be an arrow. Well, we'll go through it here. Bear with me as I advance. Okay. When we're dealing with storm damage on a structure, okay, be cautious of the water. Now, those who has a single floor home in this area, those you definitely want to be out of, okay? You don't want to be in that home. You want to be evacuated out, okay? You want to be able to be out, and basically, if a double floor home, it could be undermined. Okay, the home could be undermined and could be having an issue there going with the fact that it could collapse because of the undermining issues of the pilings of the structure. Okay, I'm not going to bother pointing anymore. Going back to my program. The last slide, the last chart portion of the slide right there shows us in 2 different barrier islands left over after the storm occurs. We have the main section, which is the northern part of the county. The southern part of that hook is basically the western shoreline of Lake Seminole, coming out to just about the ridge here, okay? And that's where the protective areas are, and it might be a good place to go seek shelter at. Further south, you have the lake itself and the bayou through there, which is going to cause a separation, and we now have a separate island altogether in St. Petersburg, okay? There's another example of surge damage, okay? The roof, walls are in place, the bottom part of the structure was removed. Okay. What is the city's role in trying to put this together to help you out? Well, the city is going to help you out with warning and assisting with evacuation, preparing the city facilities for hardening so they won't be destroyed through the storm, disseminating the accurate and timely information out to you all, getting it out, helping you out, getting it good information to help you be protected, okay? And search and rescue of victims, okay? The police department's going to be probably assisting with that issue, looking and accounting for it. Accountability is a big issue with a storm. What accountability is, people knowing where you are. You probably just saw in the recent storms that occurred in Moore, Oklahoma, where the numbers were very high after the storm, and then they started to, thankfully, started to progress downward. That is an example of accountability. They did not know where the residents were after the storm, so they thought they were lost in the storm. Once they started accounting for everybody, the numbers decreased, okay? So you want to make sure that we have an understanding to notify people, have contact people out of state. You can use them to call them so they can call back and let us know your location and such, if we can account for you after the storm. So we're not doing wild goose chases looking for people that are perfectly safe, and we have enough resources to help the people that are truly in danger. Okay. We want to clear the roadways of assessing damage. The coordinating the relief efforts are important. That's where all your city fathers are working on. And then resuming the government operations as soon as possible to create the infrastructure necessary to keep this community thriving. What can you do now? You're going to make plans. You can make plans for your pets. Now is the time to do it, okay? A lot of people think about their pets after the fact. Think about it early. You can call this number, 582-2150. They can help set up a plan for you and a place that you can lodge your pet, okay, and give you some guidance of what to do. It's really a good thing to have in place. You don't want to be thinking about that when you're trying to evacuate. It's too much on your plate. And a lot of shelters, in fact, every shelter will not take dogs or cats or other critters, okay? You need to have accountability for the pets because we're looking for places for people. Make sure you have medications and maintain a 2-week supply because the infrastructure for supplying the medications to you may not be there. The pharmacist may not be able to support you. And we want to make sure we have enough supply for you to make sure you're taken care of appropriately, okay? Have a hurricane goal folder of important documents and have that in a plastic type of bag. Types of documents you want to have is your birth certificate, your driver's license, documents of ownership to your home and vehicles, and of course those all-important insurance information forms, okay, to prove what your values are. So when it's time to recover, we have that information. We don't want that scattered to the four winds, quite literally, okay? Prepare your property. Evaluate your home and structure now. Make sure it's hardened. Make sure it can withstand the storm as best to the ability that you can provide, okay? Protect your windows. Put on shades and things of this nature, or barrier devices that can help protect it, okay? Hurricane shutters and such, okay? Pick up loose debris and trash because your loose debris that you may have around your home could turn into a missile to destroy your own home or your neighbors. A lawn chair, garbage can, things of this nature we don't think of much because it's light, it's plastic, and can't be much, but it's blowing around at 80 miles an hour. It'll blow through a window or even through something other stronger structure that could be a problem. Verify your insurance coverages now. Problem with insurance companies, not a really problem, but a known fact with insurance companies, once storms are declared, you cannot do anything with your insurance, okay? Very difficult. When they start naming storms, that's it. They shut it off, and they're not going to do any corrections or changes in your policy or even get new policies. So we want to make sure we get all our insurance coverages taken care of now, okay? Pay attention to the weather. Heed the early warnings. Give yourself the time necessary to secure and get out, okay? And then follow the updated weather reports. Charlie was the prime example of that, okay? Was that a glitch? Was that a bump? Things change, okay? And we know that. The only constant in weather is the fact that it's not constant. Special needs evacuation needs to be taken into account as to for individuals that need help. Who are those people that need help? They're the individuals that have medical needs. Okay, we get them to a special needs because maybe going to a regular shelter won't be good for them. Advance register for that type of information in Pinellas County. There's individuals out there that have transportation problems and can't get to a shelter. Those are individuals that would be good and wise to have special needs registration as well. And that information for special needs registration is in the brochure there of surviving the storm that I've distributed to you all. Register this information timely. Now is the time to do it. You don't want to be waiting to the last minute because the system will be overwhelmed. Do not leave for public shelters unless your zone is designated to evacuate. Okay? This zone will be designated. You're in the purple zone. Ta-da! Lucky you all, right? Okay. You'll be getting out. You'll be going to shelters. But what did I recommend? Go to a home or something of that nature. Okay? Review the county materials that I distributed to you to find the shelter locations. Find the closest open shelter and appropriate shelter. How do you know which one's open? You have to listen to the media reports as to which shelters are being opened. Sometimes, even though they print it in the documents that you have, that there's shelter locations, because of some consequences going on with the storm, that shelter may not be available to you. Okay? Public shelters should be your area of last resort. Find a friend. Okay? Look around. Look at that map as to where your friends live. See if you can stay with them. That'd be the best time to do it. And now is the best time to do it. It's the best place to go. Okay? Public shelters are not a happy place. I've managed a lot of them over my career. Okay? They're not Ramada Inns or anything like that. Far from it. You're lucky if you have a cot. So if you can go to a public shelter, it should be last resort. Okay? Try to find a friend to stay with, as I said, who lives in that non-evacuation zone, and then prepare a kit of supplies to bring with you. Don't rely on your friend to give it to you. You have it. Be self-sufficient. The rule of thumb is a gallon of water per day per person. Have that type of water with you. Medicines. Have some canned goods. Bring some things along. Talk to your friends about putting together these types of programs and pantry type items so you can be prepared in the future. Okay. Host homes are homes sponsored by businesses, employers, places of worship, civic organizations, and community groups. Okay? Basically, they put these together. Whatever organization you may be with, they might have this in place already as a host home. It's usually a voluntary participation with it, and you try to get elderly patients, disabled people, pet owners. They're targeted participants usually in these host homes. The clubs and organizations help put them up. Okay. Shelter supplies have 2 to 3 days of clothing. Okay, have your medicines, something to sit or sleep on. A lawn chair would be best. Okay, something of that so you're up and off the ground. Have toiletries and blanket. Please don't forget the toiletries. It's real important stuff. Okay, have a blanket to keep warm. It gets chilly. Have a flashlight because we probably won't have electricity. It helps you get around and visualize things and see. Okay, snack foods, non-perishable items. Okay, battery-operated radio with earphones. The reason why you have the earphones is so you're not annoying your neighbor. It's nice to have that. You don't want to be turning the radio on. You'd be surprised at small little things in a shelter that annoy people, and that causes for not a very good experience at a shelter. Okay? Book or magazines to read, quiet materials for children and things of this nature. If you have children or grandchildren are going to be in the shelter with you, make sure we have games and things of this nature that are nice and quiet. And again, reiterating the water, 1 gallon a day per person. Okay. When it's time to go home, this is when the police officer is going to be speaking to you. The police sergeant is going to be talking to you about going home. Wait for the all clear. Have your picture ID ready. Have your registration for you. We just talked about. Be aware of a limited time that you may be allowed back on the island. They may not allow you to stay because it may not be safe. So you may have limited time frames to stay here. There may be poor living conditions, and be aware to prevent injuries. Power wires down, kill people. We lost a lot of people in after Andrew because of electrical energy accidents that occurred. Okay, usually from generators. People would backfeed generators incorrectly and energize wires that are down in the neighborhood. People thinking they're de-energized would get electrocuted. Treat every wire that's down as energized. Every wire, whether it's cable TV, telephone, electric, we don't know. It could be energized. We don't want to treat all those wires that way. Okay. Then to wrap up, prepare today. Let's have a plan, stay safe. And thank you for listening. I'll be available for questions. Thank you. Yes?
Yes. For Hurricane Charlie, was there an evacuation for the burial island?
Yes. There was a level 1 evacuation being performed for Charlie because of surge that they were predicting that would come in. they didn't get all the way up to level 3 that I was hearing about that was going to be done. They were holding off, and the move, the hurricane did move. But the low-lying areas for most minimal storms will be called for this particular area. We'll want you to evacuate low-lying areas.
Were there any issues that came up during the evacuation that we can learn from?
Not that I'm informed
Okay,
of.
let me respond to that. On Hurricane Charlie, we did get evacuated from Redington Shores because where I heard Dennis Phillips talk was in the house I went to on the ridge.
Yes.
Because I was evacuated to the ridge, and that's where I heard him say, "Is that a wobble?" And that's why I told everybody, "Shut up, we're going to listen to this." And so yeah, and then on Charlie, when they were evacuated, they were evacuating toward Orlando. Then Punta Gorda, the storm turned and went to Orlando. So there were problems. Nothing's sure, you know what I mean? But if you live on the island here, you're going to get evacuated. Count on it.
And go sooner rather than later.
That's right. Have a plan now, and then go someplace. Probably the friend or the host family is the best way to do it.
All right, Brad, that's a great... Oh, hey, go ahead.
Thank you.
I have
Yes.
a question.
Yes.
My understanding is that if it's a Cat 5, all of Pinellas County will be underwater.
Only you saw the picture of the two different islands.
Yeah,
That's the
that's
area.
it?
Those are the areas that'll be high and dry.
Above
Everything
water.
else will be underwater.
Okay.
So there will be 2 islands. Pinellas County will turn into 2 islands because of the elevation, excuse me, of the area. Right. Yes, sir.
Is there an equal danger from the Gulf rising versus the waterway? I mean, depending on which way.
It's about the same. It all supplies from the same source, sir. Yes, sir.
Can you evacuate out of state, or do you have to stay in the state?
Good question. You can evacuate out of state. Yeah, you better give yourself enough time, though, because it's going to be a longer drive. But yes, that's a good idea. I do know people that go to Georgia and North Carolina and stuff like that when a storm happens. They secure everything and off they go.
Pay attention
That's
so
right.
it doesn't go too.
That's right. Pay attention to where it goes. Exactly.
I will tell you, I have neighbors that during '04, when
Yes.
we had them one by one, each time they evacuated, wherever they went, that's what got
Chased
hit.
them.
And the
Stay
last
away
time
from
they
them.
went to Alabama, so we started asking them, where are you going?
Don't go there.
All right, Brad, thank you so much. That was a
You're
great
welcome.
presentation.
Thank you, sir.
And okay, let's let Sergeant Rawson now talk about. We were talking about evacuation, security, and reentry. So let's Sergeant
Good
Rawson.
evening, everybody. I'm just going to touch on after the evacuation has been ordered and taken place, but along those lines, when an evacuation order is given by the Board of County Commissioners, we strongly urge you to heed the order and evacuate. And as I said, do it quickly, sooner as opposed to later. The longer you wait, everybody else is waiting, and there's a log jam, and you're stuck. So just go. Once the evacuation has begun and is taking place, police officers will remain on duty out here on the barrier islands at all times. But as safety permits, bear in mind that the officers, we bring them in off the street when the winds reach 45 miles an hour sustained. They have to come in and stay in the police station until the winds subside. Once that happens, they're back out. They'll do everything they can to safeguard your property, to watch over everything, to maintain order, make sure that people aren't milling around in neighborhoods that shouldn't be there. Along those lines, there'll come a time when the all clear is given and we'll begin a reentry process. In Pinellas County, the Sheriff's Office is responsible for reentry. They will be on the mainland controlling entry back out onto the beaches. The municipal police officers will be staying out here and conducting police actions and security, like I said, safeguarding your property, your valuables while you're gone. They will be here, rest assured. We may have to walk to get to your house, but we'll be here. To get back, once the all clear is given and the reentry has begun, the Sheriff's Office, as I said, is responsible for reentry. If you live on the barrier islands, you will have to have a reentry pass issued by the municipality that you live in. In other words, here at Redington Shores, you can obtain it from Town Hall. Do it now. Make sure that you have it. If you don't have a reentry pass, you won't get back out here. It just isn't going to happen. In addition to the reentry pass, have a government-sponsored or issued ID like your driver's license. It speeds the process. Bear in mind that when you get back out here, It's going to be chaotic. There's most likely going to be a lot of damage. Things are probably going to be impassable for the most part, and there may be a limited time that you're allowed to come back and survey the damage and get some belongings. Those are all possibilities depending on the severity of the storm. So just trying to prepare you for all eventualities and what you might face. The big thing is be vigilant, have a lot of patience, and if you need anything from us, make sure that you call us. Phone service can be spotty. The cell phone companies all say that they come in and bring generators and portable antennas and get things back up and running pretty quickly, so you should have cell phone coverage. But be vigilant. If you're permitted back into your home and there's a lot of damage, be mindful that there are looters, there are people that take advantage of situations. Be prepared to call us. There may be a delay. There's a lot going on. You may have to fend for yourself for a little bit. I'll be totally honest with you, but we will be here and we will get to you as quickly as we can. Okay? But the biggest thing I want to assure you is we will remain here. It's not like you guys leave and we leave too. We don't. We stay, and we will remain.
Thank you, Sergeant Rawson. And we can take questions at any time. Okay, so now you saw some pictures of some homes that were affected by either storm surge or wind or both. And so we're going to let Steve Andrews, our building official, talk to you a little bit about the new Florida building codes that would hopefully mitigate some of this potential damage. Go ahead, Steve.
Hi. Yeah, let me start by saying that even though your house might be built to the current Florida building code, and let's say the hurricane current Florida building codes that started in 2001, if you're in an evacuation area, you still want to evacuate. The designs are only such that they're designed for a certain speed or a certain water depth, and you never know when this storm could be the one that exceeds all those, and so it's order to evacuate. The new Florida building code 2010, which was adopted in 2012 by the Florida legislature, basically added some floodplain management regulations which were already part of the town ordinances and that we've been enforcing for many years. The changes in the code included how engineers calculate their designs for the wind and for the water, and using more intense parameters. They've come up with better models, better climatic information and forensic information of buildings after they've been hit by storms. So the engineers created a new American Society of Civil Engineers 710 and 2405, which was adopted in Chapter 16, the structural chapter of the Florida Building Code. And these are the areas that deal with the design specifications for houses. Main thing is that it takes a little different approach to treating multiple loads, such as wind, water, combined actions on structures, and also they consider all the barrier islands kind of the same special flood hazard area, whereas the V zone and A zone used to have different constraints. It all has the same constraint, but the V zone has a little higher regulation still. They added some categories of structures so that public structures such as hospitals and police stations and EOCs and things like that had to be designed with extra elevation, extra design wind speed, and therefore exceeding what would be required for a farm building or for a house. Another thing which came into the new code was a design flood elevation, because everything in the new code has base flood elevation plus a freeboard. The base flood elevation, of course, is the elevation that's predicted by the models by the flood insurance rate maps and FEMA that where the water elevation is going to be at a 1% chance of happening any 100 years. That's a 100-year occurrence. The freeboard is extra elevation above the base flood elevation as a margin of safety, and what the design flood elevation is the combination or the addition of the freeboard to the base flood elevation. Most people know what a base flood elevation is because that's what the minimum finished floor had to be at the time most houses were built here, but now that's basically increased because of these new requirements. We've been enforcing a lot of those for a while already, except for the freeboard, additional freeboard changes. And because of these changes to the Florida Building Code, the town had to revise its flood ordinance because FEMA and the National Flood Insurance Program kind of wanted us to do it wants to have everything integrated so that you can reference the one and get to the other. And we've done that with the town ordinance, and took the chance there to add a couple of extra requirements, which was a freeboard over the minimum that the code required, and the a cumulative and substantial improvement calculation, which it's a definition, but also a time frame involved with making repairs or replacing structures. There's a 50% rule, which is basically what substantial improvement cutoff point is for the guideline for doing remodeling or repairs or replacing after a storm. So now the new code adds this cumulative substantial improvements, and it takes other improvements that were done in the past 5 years and adds those together versus the current market value of the structure before the damage occurred. Both of these added regulations will help keep the town insurance cost discount. Through the CRS program, we get a 20% discount on all policies in town. The additional freeboard that the town added is really about a foot over what the code added, and the if you know the elevations of structures around town, if you've already got a house that's a garage storage area on the first floor, basically flood ready, or in other words the water can run through, or the structure finished floor usually will meet that freeboard already for the finished floor. Only things that didn't have to meet it before were things like the electric and ACs, and now those have to have that same element. Like I said before, the only thing I say is even the house designed today, built to the current codes with extra, I recommend to evacuate when they ask you to evacuate.
Thank you, Steve. And these are all built to, protect us. So appreciate the fact that sounds complex, and it is. But so let me just wrap up. First off, let me thank you guys again for coming to the meeting. I do want to say we talked about evacuating, and then the storm hits, and then we want to come back, and we need these re-entry passes to come back. But let me set your expectations. When we evacuate and the storm hits, before we can come back, the roads have to be cleared, the debris has to be removed, and so you're talking days for that to happen. They talk about a first push where they're going to come down and clear Gulf Boulevard, and then they have to take that debris out, and then they have to get each of the side streets, they have to get that debris out, and then they're going to let you back in. So, when you evacuate, you need to be prepared to evacuate for more than a few hours. And so hopefully, we don't have to experience that in the next few years. I'm going to, these reentry passes are available. You have to fill out this application, and $1 will get you this reentry pass. Do it now. It's a good thing. Do it when the town hall is open, actually. So my wish is for everybody to have a safe 2013, and that my real wish is that next year when I have this hurricane awareness meeting, I can open it up with a statement that says, for the last 8 years, we have not experienced a storm. So thank you all for your time, and there's community concessions in the back.